Welcome. This is Tom Harmer here talking to Bob Brunson, one of my father's friends and pilots, a wingman pilot in World War II. And we are going through Richard E. Harmer's 1944 journal eventually. But right now, Bob's just going to explain a little bit about his history, where he came from, and how we met Richard E. Harmer. So go ahead, Bob. Why don't you start off and explain a little bit of your history?
Okay, well, I was born in Abilene, Kansas, or close by, and actually ended up growing up in Leavenworth, Kansas, from about the third grade on through high school. We lived on a small dairy farm. I went off to college to the agricultural school at Kansas State Agricultural College, and majored in dairying until I learned that they were offering pilot instructions free of charge, and engineering students had first priority. I'll go back a bit further here. My father was learned to fly in World War I. He earned his wings as a pilot flying the Jenny. He did not fly afterwards, but he kind of inspired an interest in flying in my early years. So when an opportunity to learn to fly presented itself in 1941, in the fall of 41, I took advantage of it and took a civilian pilot training course. During that period of time, I had soloed and was getting my private license. Pearl Harbor happened, and I attempted to join the Army Air Corps. I took the physical, but I had a rash on my face for borrowing an electric razor from my roommate, and they asked me to come back. Well, after Pearl Harbor, I promptly went back country, three legs in which there would be three pilots, each flying one of the legs, and on a night flight. And it happened to be overcast that night. It was over the swamps west of Miami, and vertigo became very apparent with the pilot that I was flying with, and I took over the controls and recovered from a power spiral, which gave me a lot of confidence in instrument flying.
What year was this, Bob?
And this was in 1942 in January.
Mm-hmm.
January of 43, I'm sorry. Then we advanced to an operational training in which there were a group of 8 of us flying with a instructor. The instructor was somebody that had returned from the fleet and was training us in squadron activities. As we finished that, Lieutenant Commander Gus Whithelm appeared on the scene and was asking for volunteers for a night fighter squadron being formed. I and one other fellow by the name of Bob Wag decided we raised our hands as volunteers to this new squadron and were accepted. So we ended up in Quonset Point, Rhode Island, in Corsair Squadron. Gus Whithelm was the commanding officer. There was a fellow by the name of Chick Harmer that was the executive of the squadron, and started doing a lot of night flying in clouds and so forth. There were 6 senior officers, JGs and full lieutenants, that were in that training program and had priority over anything that we could use to learn from. They were sent off to Guadalcanal area in September of 43. They left Chick Harmer, the executive officer, to train 13 ensigns in night fighter tactics. I'll regress a little bit in that there were 34 Corsairs off the production line. One of them was the first Corsair off the production line. Was modified to carry radar. They had a blister on the right wing that held a scanner, and in the cockpit we had a small screen to read the responses that the scanner picked up. There were only 34 of these planes